international best practices with respect to rendition of services to the seafarers that come visiting the port of Lagos, as well as even our own seafarers who also are working in other climes and also being developed at home in our various institutions. You are here so that we can take advantage of your knowledge, your industry, your experiences, and we want to thank you for agreeing to, particularly our panelists, for agreeing to participate in this program. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce the panelists once again. We've had to do that much earlier, but let me start by welcoming first Ben Bailey. Ben Bailey is the Director of Advocacy at the International Center in London of Mission to Seafarers. I welcome you, Ben. Let me also welcome Reverend Cedric Rattenbach, our Regional Director in South Africa. I welcome you, Cedric. You're most welcome. Representing the Director General of Nigerian Maritime Administration, Nigerian Maritime and Safety Administration is our own Ibrahim Jibril, who is Director of Maritime Labor Services of NIMASA, as we call them. And our own indefatigable lady who's spent much of her time taking care of seafarers as a ship owner, as a former president of Nigeria Trawler Ship Owners Association. Trawler Ship Owners Association is our own Margaret Orakusi. Margaret is currently the chairman of Nigerian Ship Owners Forum. I welcome you too. I welcome also Mr. Aminu Umar, who is the managing director and chief executive of Sea Transport Group. I believe your group was the one that won the best position as a ship owner in the last year's award from NIMASA for Nigerian ship owners. I welcome you. I also have the honor of welcoming Mohammed Safinayu, who is the Africa Regional Representative of International Transport Federation. The Federation has been partnering with Mission to Seafarers with respect to by ways of assistance and encouragement so that Nigeria can, like all other countries of the world, give the very best to ship owners, seafarers that are coming to our shores. I welcome you also. Let me also welcome my dear friends. We've been together for quite some time over the years. Chidi Logu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, a renowned maritime lawyer, and the current president of Nigerian Maritime Law Association. I welcome you, Chidi. Greg, Engineer Greg Ogbefu, he would like to be introduced as a seafarer at one time. Of course, he's a ship owner now, and he sits on the conglomerate called Stars Group, which are ship owners, and they also run dockyard services in Nigeria. I welcome you. I'm still expecting to have Professor Ayodele Olurotimikoka. I believe you must be on now. I most welcome you, sir.
I am very
Professor, thank you very much, Prof. Professor is the clinical psychologist and associate professor of psychiatry at Lagos State University Teaching Hospital. I welcome you, sir. I also have the honor to welcome Captain Tajudeen Alao, the current president of Nigeria Association of Master Mariners, a one-time seafarer, and someone who has a lot of passion for assuring the best services are rendered to the seafarers, possibly because of his own antecedents, possibly because of his own pedigree as well. I welcome you, Captain Alao. I have also the opportunity and the honor of welcoming Engineer John Okuntokun, who is the Vice President of Association of Association of Marine Engineers of Nigeria, AMES. I welcome you. Madam Karen Ogidigben, the Director of Maritime Consultancy at Trans-Basin Group, I also welcome you. Thank you very much, panelists. I believe that virtually every panelist is present with us now. Now, the way we go about our business of the day, I want to let everybody know that we don't have too much time for obvious reasons. We're on webinar and the airs are jam full of people wanting to also have the opportunity of being aired. We have barely 2 hours to be able to go through this. To start with, I'm going to give 3 minutes to each participant in the first instance, and then additional 2 minutes when the need arises for them to come back to be able to contribute. The specific topics which each of the panelists are going to speak on is already indicated to them, but by way of possibly reminding ourselves, I would like to once again say these are the things we expect from the panelists, but it is not exclusive. If they still need to, within the time allotted to them, if there is need for them to say a few more things, will be most, they'll be most welcome. I would expect that Mr. Bembele, who is the Director of Advocacy and Regional Engagements of Mission to Seafarers in London, our headquarters, will be talking about international efforts as addressing seafarers' welfare and possibly letting us know what are the best international practices so that we too in Nigeria, as part and parcel of our renaissance, will be able to also speak, to take a lot of cue from some of the things that have been said today, so that in terms of service rendition, taking care of the welfare of seafarers, we may be able to adopt some of the best practices. Engineer, I'm Captain Tajudeen Alao, will be speaking about effects of long-distance voyages, port operations and cargo operations on the seafarer, and in what way do we assist to soothe their nerves and assist them, particularly when they are within our ports for that period during which they are going to be here. Reverend Cedric Rodenbach, I introduced you earlier on. I want to repeat that you've been most wonderful to us in chaperoning us, particularly the new group. You even were present at our inauguration about 3 months ago. I want to say we are indeed very grateful for all that has been done. We would ask you to please speak about the pastoral issues and how through pastoral services we can find ways of calming the nerves of seafarers who definitely everybody knows that they've been coming from too far a place, and by the time they are calling at our shores, they are drained both spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. How, by way of pastoral approaches, calm their nerves so that we can get the very best out of them. I have here also Alhaji Aminu Umar, a major ship owner, possibly one of the biggest in Nigeria, And the title that you are going to speak once again that has been allotted to you, sir, but it's not necessarily exclusive, Owner's Challenge on the Seafarers' Welfare, including multiple state actors and the ship's visits. State actors, by which I mean the regulatory authorities in the various ports of call, and then, of course, their effect on how they dovetail in terms of the services between the ship owner and the seafarers. Margaret, once again, I want to introduce Margaret as someone who is so passionate. Because of my closeness to Margaret, I do know that she cares very much about most of our seafarers, even when they are on the high seas. I have witnessed where she's been on to them, trying to take care of their needs, even several nautical miles offshore. Margaret will be speaking on the unsung heroes of the ocean fishing, the safety and operational challenges. And I believe that she'll be speaking from the heart. Thank you once again, Margaret, for that. Mr. Mohammed Safianu, we have asked that you please speak from the point of view of ITF about unethical employment practices by the ship owners. There's no doubt about it that it's a running battle between ITF and the ship owners. Of course, they can't do without each other. One is representing the employees, whereas the others are the employers. Greg would love to remind us that he was once a seafarer. We will also be, even though he's now a ship owner, we will be expecting you, Greg, to please talk about the challenges, particularly in offshore environment. Offshore, by which I mean offshore exploration areas, offshore oil exploration areas. Chidi, as the president of the Maritime Law Association of Nigeria, has had to handle issues concerning detention of ships and the effect on the seafarers. When two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. But I do know that Chidi is very passionate about ensuring that when two elephants are fighting, the grass, in this particular case, the seafarer does not suffer too much. Madam Karen, thank you very much once again. We've asked you to please speak about employers' challenges for seafarers, international shipping, and I believe that you do justice to that. Thank you very much, Captain Professor Koka. The psychological issues definitely are very important when they have been at sea for so long a time, ensconced in their bunker, seeing the same sets of people every day, surrounded by water, missing home, missing family. Definitely issues arise concerning their psychological frame of mind. I believe, Prof, you will please do justice to this. So once again, thank you very much, our panelists, and I thank you also, our participants that are standing by. We appreciate your registration with us on this particular voyage. We will therefore cast off by asking Ben to please take the floor. You have the floor, Ben. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you wherever you are around the world, and thank you so much for inviting me to be with you today. It's a joy to see the work that's going on across Nigeria. I was there with Reverend Cedric earlier this year. It was our last trip of the year before the lockdowns began, and to capture this energy and this enthusiasm is a real delight to see and to be a part of. Many of you watching this will be familiar with the Seafarers Happiness Index, the quarterly survey which the Mission to Seafarers publishes. And as more and more countries went into lockdown earlier this year, we published our Q2 report where seafarers were talking to us about the issues they were facing during the pandemic. We're just about to publish our Q3 report, and I thought it would be interesting this morning to sort of set some of the scene and the context and to discuss some of the issues that seafarers are telling us that are causing them a problem. Many of these tally with the services that the mission is providing, such as our Chat to a Chaplain service, which is a digital chaplaincy service and which is connecting seafarers to chaplains 24/7, 365 days of the year. And it's available in a variety of languages. And so far, we've had over 700 calls to that service on a range of issues. Lack of communication is obviously a common complaint from seafarers, and through our social communications mental well-being courses that we're running, many seafarers' families too feel that they are not hearing enough from their loved ones. We've also been told recently that many seafarers who are struck by the pandemic and they're stuck around the world, that the bandwidth that they were enjoying on board their vessels has been turned off or restricted, which means that when seafarers need to stay in touch with their loved ones, particularly during this pandemic, that is not possible. And we as an organisation in London and internationally, we are very concerned about the mental health impact such restrictions are having on crew well-being. But when you add the restrictions in communication to the issue of repatriation, which I will touch on in a moment, the issue becomes even more acute. Our digital chaplaincy program has been full of conversations of seafarers expressing concerns for their loved ones back home. And I think that speaks a lot of the resilience of seafarers. So much work is put into preparing crews for life at sea, what it will be like, but also the limitations to expect. But how much of that training is given to seafarers working in other sectors? We've noticed a big distinction in recent weeks between seafarers who are working on traditional shipping to those who are working on cruise ships, many of whom have contacted us to talk about their difficulties and their mental health concerns. And we feel very strongly as an organisation that there are questions around resilience training to ensure that everyone going to sea is properly prepared. Shore leave continues to be an issue. Faster turnaround times and increased workload has always meant that seafarers have chosen to use their downtime to sleep rather than to get away from the ship. And obviously the pandemic has heightened the fear of many. And whilst some countries have re-emphasized the importance of shore leave, you'll find many of our chaplains and teams around the world doing the shopping for seafarers, getting them not only access to communication, but also treats, but also in many cases medication. And it's been pleasing to see the progress made by the Mission to Seafarers in Nigeria as they redevelop their centre. We're investing heavily in our centres and our transportation services around the world because we want them to be the best that they can be, but we want them to be safe so that seafarers who are understandably concerned during this pandemic have a relatively safe and comfortable place for them to be. Finally, I just want to touch on the issue of repatriation. In many ways, it's a double-edged sword because whilst crews obviously want to return home, many have told us that they are concerned about how their families will receive them when they get there. We've had several cases where seafarers have been forced by their families to isolate, and in one dramatic case, a seafarer was ordered to leave the village by the local elders because the village was so concerned that he was a risk and that he was infectious, and that they thought he would bring the disease to the village, even though in that instance the seafarer actually had a negative test result. The local family, the local community weren't taking any of it, and they forced him to leave. Of course, there's very little that can be done by organisations such as ours and the maritime industry to change public opinion on the coronavirus. But whilst we urge for repatriation, I do think it's really important that we approach it with sensitivity, ensuring that seafarers are properly supported in that process. It's not job done just when they land at their home airport. There are many lessons, just finally, to learn from the way seafarers are being treated during this pandemic, and many of them are painfully obvious, like the need to classify them as key workers. But if crews can connect with their loved ones and access good quality information to support their mental health and well-being, then happier, healthier, and dare I say safer seafarers the industry will have. Chairman, I hope that's my 3 minutes, and I will hand back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ben. Thank you very much indeed. You've raised issues that I like two of our panelists to react to, in addition to whatever it is that they themselves have to say. They are Mohammed Safinayu of ITF and Oniha, representing the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria. But I give the floor now to Mohammed Safinayu. Would you like to say something concerning that?
Yeah, I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity for me to be part of this very important discussion. And I think briefly before I go into my little comment about what has been said a bit earlier, I think we need to know that is for the purpose of the audience that do not know much about ITF. I think I need to just say one or two things so that I can build up my argument here. ITF is usually a global union federation, representing the transport workers' rights, justice and equality. This includes not necessarily only maritime, all the transport workers. But with respect to this exercise, I think I will need to highlight that as of now, we have records of about 1 million seafarers globally. And ITF actually represent the interests of about 3 over 3 of these seafarers. And we also need to know now that, the whole global trade, about 90% of the whole global trade is actually being transported through the maritime system. And this transportation is actually done by very courageous people, which we actually call the seafarers, courageous and seafarers that normally sacrifice themselves for the supply of essential goods and services to the whole of the world. And sometimes their contract actually sometimes built up to 9 months or so. And particularly with respect to what is actually happening now, with respect to the COVID-19 restrictions and the lockdowns, we have on record about over 200,000 seafarers that are actually being frustrated or fatigued because of the restrictions and of course the lockdown due to the COVID-19. And of course, we also need to know, because you've just highlighted the issue about what is actually ITF doing with respect to the issues surrounding seafarers in our relationship with the ship owners. Yes, we have globally what we call the IBF. IBF stands for International Bargaining Forum. It's actually a forum that is actually jointly, done between what we call a joint negotiating group and of course ITF. Joint negotiating group represent the ship owners and of course the ship managers, while ITF represent the seafarers. Now there are so many things that we actually talk in terms of when we are negotiating and discussing this kind of forum. We take care of the health and safety. We also discuss the issue of conditions of employment and of course wages. And as you can recall, most of you know the kind of problems that the seafarers actually are happening, going through now. Sometimes due to the unreasonable, let me just use the unreasonable attitude of some ship owners, not trying to mind about what the the seafarers are going through. You could see that now, I just have told you that we have so many seafarers that are actually having some frustrations around the world. And from our own records, if nothing actually is done, if nothing is actually done quickly, we may have these numbers rise up to 370, 380 in the next few months. So I think it is also very important for us to actually see how best we can collaborate to synergize because of the interests of these seafarers. You can also imagine this world without the seafarers. I'm sure this world is going to be doomed because of the kind of services they are actually rendering. So I'm actually very happy to make sure that we in ITF have a kind of synergy to make sure that we collaborate with critical stakeholders to make sure that the seafarers get the kind of necessary assistance they require. From the record that I have just recently, I have been told that our unions in Nigeria, that is the Merchant Navy Senior Staff Association, of course, the Maritime Union of Nigeria, have been collaborating with stakeholders, the NPA, the NEMASA, and some people like you in the MTS, and of course, ISWAN, to make sure that very good and of course, necessary assistance is actually rendered. Because from the record that I have now, with all these issues about restrictions, about movement and lockdown, with this collaboration, I've been told that over 500 seafarers have been effectively repatriated back to their countries. And I want to be very, very much happy with this kind of collaboration. And I will be open. ITF is going to be open to make sure that we have this kind of cooperation to make sure that the seafarers get the kind of the desired attention they need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. I like Oniha to come in here. When I was discussing with the President General a few days ago, he mentioned something about you being unhappy. The union, I mean Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria, being unhappy about the issues of crew change, particularly in the period of COVID. What do you have to say concerning this? Thank you. Oniha. Well, I'm not so sure whether Mr. Oniha is listening to me. If we cannot get that one, I think what we probably will do is to go on to discuss with the President of National Association of Master Mariners, Captain Alao. You have the floor. Captain, I'm not unaware of that in your own private practice, issues of recruits, manning, and things like that also come up, which can be affected by the current COVID as we have it. Captain Alao, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you,
Captain Alao.
I want to thank the mission to see for giving us.
You need to please speak up. Be close to your, as much as possible. Be close to your microphone. Hello? Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much. I want to show my appreciation to the mission to seafarers. Yes, locally and internationally. Hello? For giving us the opportunity, the platform for this discussion. I want to state here that as a seafarer myself, when people stay long sea, 28 days from Lagos to Japan, you want to touch the land. You want to touch the land. And you look at the frustration. When in Korea, they say no shore leave. Or when in Russia, they say no shore leave. There will be a lot of agitation for people. In UK, no problem. The mission is there to be dogs in Liverpool to come and take you ashore. But when you go to a place where they now say, a Nigerian going to Ghana, maybe you have a wife in Ghana and you need a short pass, officially in Tema. Even for a Nigerian, it's very frustrating. And also when you overstay on a ship, say Lagos Anchorage, it's that of hopelessness. Your ship is under arrest by the courts, and you don't know when this case will go on. You stay 6 months, 9 months, you want to go home. There are instances of masters paying their tickets to fly off, their wages. The ITF will take up the matter, ask you and I to keep their money, wages, to buy their tickets and go home. This is the frustration that seamen they go through. I'm not talking of the economic aspect, social, psychological, mental. We are fathers in absentia. 80% of seafarers, their children were born in the absence. So there is no bonding. There is no bonding between father and children. And also in adulthood, there is no parental guidance, a fatherly guidance to the children. There are instances where seafarers, they lose their home the wife will go with another man. I know of a cadet in a trip from Liverpool to Australia, suicide because the fiancé abandoned him. Another area is communication. In those cases, how we come and take people on the ship, they go make phone calls to their wives, and then everybody is happy. Communication with home front is something that is lacking these days. I'm on the ship, and Liverpool is winning the cup, and then I cannot go out to watch it at the Seafarers meeting. I'm a Liverpool supporter. Anyway, there are places where she think, or there is not of war in Kuwait, and there's no means of communication. The family at home, they are worried. The people on board, they are worried to tell their wife that we are okay on the ship. In 1990, I was actually on the Falawiyo ship. We just came out of Kuwait when the war broke out. And we were not coming to Nigeria. We were heading to it because we were camping. These are the problem, the issues that seafarers go through. You are sure the rest hour you was observing in order to work. By the same token, your ship is only staying few hours in port. You want to go ashore and do one or two things, and you still have a dancing soul. Sure, you want to go to a nearby port and move your body, and there's no time, and you have to go. Too many pressures, especially these days when we have used to port and the ship around is very fast. On the other hand, when you overstay, don't know whether time is still on my side. When you overstay, one your time, then the psychological effect is on you. You cannot abandon.
Hello, Captain. Captain, if you are listening to me,
whether you call, in fact,
I think I'm.
in some ports, you have to have. Hello.
Hello, Captain. Please let me
Yes,
interrupt you for a moment. You raised issues about the ship owners. I have two of our panelists actually represent ship owners, and I'd like them to react at this particular moment. I'd like to have Madam Karen. Please, you like to react to a few to team. I had some quality of view here as Captain Alao speaking. But I do hope not every one of us that. I'll ask Madam Karen Ogidigben, and then later on, I'll ask Mr. Aminu Umar to please react to some of the points that have been allowed. Starting with Madam Karen, you have the floor, ma'am.
Unfortunately, the line wasn't so clear, so we would probably need to let him finish and then take his points one after the other. It was really unclear. I barely could pick out everything he was saying or even follow through.
Well, his network is weak, but I think the issue that he's raising is the same thing as we're trying to, is expanding on that, the issue of ship owners' reaction to the COVID and the nuances that we get, particularly on the seafarer. Maybe since since his audio is very weak, I think I will just ask you to let me know, or to let us know what you think about that and what are ship owners doing. We want to hear it from your own side on international level, and then of course I will ask once again Aminu Umar to please let us know by way of ship owners in our own climate. So, Madam, please go ahead with that.
I heard him talk a lot about seafarers being stuck on board and the inability for them to go home. Now, from a global perspective, and having worked for a global liner company where you have ships calling the world, most of the issues have not necessarily been that the ship owners do not want to let the seafarers go home. In fact, the biggest problem has been the lockdown from these countries, right? So it's been a little bit tricky, and ship owners have had to speak with associations where they have to keep talking to government and trying to push them to open up the borders to allow seafarers go in and out so that crew changes can happen. In fact, a lot of ship owners have actually gone to the point of using charter flights, collaborating together to have charter flights all over the world. And there has been, some advantages to this. And we're seeing crew changes happening between April and today. The numbers are increasing. If you, Intermanager has really been of great help to seafarers around the world and to ship owners. Peter Dole is doing the same thing. And I remember yesterday, there was a ship owner advertising that they did have some spaces for a flight that was going to be going from Belarus to Lagos and back to Belarus. So ship owners are actually, yes, taking the initiative and the additional cost to ensure that seafarers go home. But in all honesty, it hasn't been easy for anybody. We commiserate with the seafarers because they are stuck on board. We also understand the issues of them getting home. We also have the issues of the ones at home constantly pressuring us to come back to sea because, of course, they're running out of cash. So it's been difficult, but yes, I do say that a lot of ship owners, especially those who run global fleets, have been able to mitigate these challenges so far.
Please let me interrupt you here and ask. We are lucky to have the Director of Maritime Labor from NIMASA. That's a major issue. The point you raised is that the authorities are not as cooperative as they should be in ensuring that the seafarers are repatriated even when the ship owner is ready. Mr. Jibril, would you like to react to this from the point of view of NIMASA as a regulatory authority and the one dealing? I know, of course, that NIMASA is not represented on presidential panel on the issue of COVID and its effect in terms of shipping services. But you also, as a government agency, what would you like to say to this? Do ship owners get in touch with you to tell you some of the problems they have about repatriating their seafarers?
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, some of the ship owners actually get in touch with us and tell us some of their challenges. But from the onset, NIMASA as a regulator had been very proactive. What we did was to contact IMO and ILO, and in leveraging with the conditions or guidelines given by IMO and ILO, we came up with Marine Notice with a step-by-step guidelines on how ship owners and seafarers could conduct themselves in this period of pandemic, such that their crew change and travels to board ships and disembark from ships was being guided properly in the pandemic period. But I believe what Karen is talking about has to do with the aviation arm, which we have no control over. If the airports were locked up, there is nothing from this end we could do. But in our own effort, we were able to get the federal government to designate seafarers as essential workers, and they were given free pass to move everywhere apart from crossing the borders. And when, like Karen said, when ship owners are able to charter flights, we facilitate using the embassies of some of these foreign nationals to facilitate their boarding of these chartered flights, and eventually they get repatriated. But right from the onset, NIMASA gave guidelines on how they should be conducted within the period of the pandemic when they are on crew change or travel to board and disembark.
Okay, thank you very much, Jibril. Alhaji Umar, sorry, I say Alhaji Umar, or Mr. Aminu Umar. What's your own take on this matter? But before you take that, Jibril, I'm not letting you go.
Okay.
Because you are the sole authority representing everything shipping and maritime in this country, and the one that is the interface with other arms of the government. The issue of wanting to isolate yourself from the issue, the side of the aviation cannot be. Even if you are unable to reach aviation authorities ordinarily, you can reach them through the presidential panel. The way you just said now that you are able to get through to them.
Okay.
What's your take on this?
Can I respond to that?
Please go ahead.
Okay. My take is that the responsibility for repatriating the crew, it lies on the ship owners. What we do is to give guide. It's not that we're trying to exonerate ourselves from it. We give a close marking on what they are doing. And what we normally advise is that the ship owner representative or the ship owner himself should present himself to us and tell us what he's doing so that we give them guide. And we have guided a number of them to be able to repatriate the seafarers. We have contacted the Presidential Task Force, and that was how we were able to get the status of essential workers for the seafarers. And some of these agents or representatives of the ship owners that have contacted us, they have been able to successfully repatriate their seafarers after having collaborated with NIMASA and after having given them guide on how to go about it.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Aminu Umar, please finally on this particular topic, would you like to comment, sir?
Okay, thank you, Chief, for giving me the chance to talk on the platform. I actually heard what I couldn't hear what Captain Alao said, but I think when you explained to Karen, more or less, I'm towing the line of Madam Karen. The situation is, yes, many ship owners are finding it difficult to repatriate seafarers where if they are about to sign off. And remember, as a ship owner, we also have a responsibility to keep the seafarers on board safe. So yes, we want to sign them off, but we also want who we are signing on to be also safe and COVID-19 free before we are able to bring them on board to join the present ones that are on board. So one of our responsibility and one of the things we, during this pandemic, we have noticed, and it took time for the government to put it in place or make it available, is the ability to be able to test the whoever or anybody that is signing on a vessel to be able to get this COVID-19 test. We all know, particularly in Nigeria, it has been a difficulty to get it. It was really at a certain period, unless you have the symptoms, you are not given the chance to be tested. So we, as ship owners, one of our cardinal responsibility is to make sure that everybody that is on board is safe for this COVID-19. And what are the things we, as a ship owner, we had to put in place is to reduce the number of people going on board the ship. So in this, not only to curtail who signs on, but who comes as also government agencies that usually come on board whenever a ship is alongside. This in Nigeria.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I think I believe we have handled this topic beautifully well. I like to draw back to our program, and I like to ask by drawing in again, Jibril, the issue of the support to seafarers, particularly on the issue of piracy and criminal acts against them. These are our heroes of the sea. we are not unaware of how much accolade has been paid to NEMASA of recent, when in the International Maritime Organization said both NEMASA as well as the Navy in Nigeria has been doing the very best they could by stamping out privacy and the effect of that on the psyche of the seafarer. I'd like to just take just 2 minutes to please tell us a little more about what you have in store to restore the confidence of the typical seafarer that is operating into Nigerian ports. You have the floor, Jibril. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Unfortunately, the activities of pirates and criminals on our waters has greatly affected our seafarers over the years. And unfortunately, nothing had been done about it to the extent that our seafarers were being criminalized and even imprisoned. And but recently, it is now in the public domain, and we have even started testing it. The anti-piracy law that has come in place, primarily we believe this is going to be a succor for the seafaring industry in Nigeria, and we will be able to address these criminal activities that are happening on our waters properly, in proper course of law. And subsequently, we believe it is through this medium that the seafarers will be protected. But this is the primary. But there are other measures that NEMASA has put in place which are welfare in nature. We have severally, and we will continue to look at issues of seafarers' welfare such that we mediate between employers and employees, that is ship owners and the seafarers themselves. We have in different instances negotiated and gotten good welfare arrangements for seafarers, and of course, even where they are being criminalized, we have succeeded in exonerating them by bringing the parties together. And we will continue to do that until such a time that cases go beyond this arbitration approach that we take to it, then they can go to courts, and then the courts of competent jurisdictions can handle them. But in terms of the welfare of seafarers and criminalization, this is what we have been doing.
Now, I'm worried about the use of the word criminalization of seafarers. What has that got to do with a piracy attack? Are we saying that the seafarer is taking part in that, or we believe that they are in concert with the pirates or something like that? Maybe. Otherwise, what is the criminalizing all about?
Both, in the sense that at times they are mistakenly termed as criminals, and please, without me having to mention any organization, there are instances where seafarers are arrested and detained without even charging them to court, and they are detained for long periods of time on the basis that they are alleged pirates or criminals.
Is it by way of collusion? Because they are the ones whose ships are being attacked. Is it by way of collusion with the pirates, or is it that they are giving information to pirates to come and attack them, or what? I need to know. And who is criminalizing them? The civil police authorities in Nigeria, in our waters?
Yes, there are various scenarios. There are times they could be involved. There are times they are kind of caught in between the web. And there are times that they are just victims of piracy. But some of the military officials, when they come to arrest, they arrest even the ones that are innocent, and they attempt to be criminals. That is what I mean by criminalization of seafarers. And without proper investigation, without proper adjudication, they are termed criminals. And there are some of them that they have been detained for several months without trial. And that is what we mean by criminalization. We have had cause to write some organizations so that we get them released. and then if they are going to be tried in court, they should be tried in court, but not to be.
Okay, I thank you very much indeed. Now I see Mr. Oniha is here. Would you like to take the floor now, Mr. Oniha?
Yes, sir. I would like to take. Yes, I would like to take the floor now.
Yes, please. Just 2 minutes for you. 2 minutes only. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I would like to take the floor now.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, sir. First and foremost, I would like to thank you, sir. First, I would like to thank the MTS for organizing this very laudable program. I want to apologize on behalf of the President General Maritime Workers Union. He was unavoidably absent today. I'd like to respond to the issues raised by Ben and say that the Maritime Workers Union takes the welfare of its membership very, very seriously. Seafarers happen to be very staunch members of our union. And of recent, because of the COVID-19 pandemic that is on ground, the union had to organize in collaboration with the International Transport Workers Federation, a program of seafarers in all seaports in Nigeria. Our basic interest was that seafarers are basically essential service providers. They are the frontliners and are easily exposed to the pandemic and the spread of it. So our interest is in the human well-being of our members. And so in that vein, we have, in collaboration with the ITF, the Seafarers Trust Fund, recently concluded a tour of all Nigerian seaports where we sensitize the seafarers on the need to stay safe and to abide by the COVID-19 protocols as provided by the ILO and the IMO and the ITF. And in that vein, we visited all the ports, Lagos, Calabar, Warri, and all of that, and distributed the PPEs and organized sensitization programs for them. So we would like to thank the MTS. We would like to extend our hands of fellowship to the NIMASA, to the MTS, to ITF, that in this very trying period, in this day period where our seafarers are majorly exposed to the ravages of the COVID-19, we need to network and put our hands together to bear so that as to keep our seafarers safe. On
Okay,
the
thank
issue
you very
of,
much.
Okay, thank you, madam.
Thank you very much. I still don't want us to go away without talking about this issue of criminalizing the seafarer. And in this case, I'd like to draw in Chidi as to please say something on this particular topic, particularly that act which Jibril said is just been established. Is it just been established? And how protective is it of the seafarer in the milieu of trying to fight piracy? Chidi, you please like to come in. Thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. And I'd like to thank the chair for this opportunity to share some thoughts. I also like to appreciate that the MTS is coming back fully on course, and so we can work together to move the industry forward as we take the interest of seafarers to heart. I fully identify with what Mr. Jibril has said, because what tends to happen is that seafarers are deemed without due process to be parties to some criminal act or the other. Now, part of the challenge is that the act, that the Anti-Piracy Act is new, and so not much has been done to implement it, so to speak. But what has tended to happen is that when a vessel is found to have taken on board, for instance, AGO or crude oil without proper authority, the vessel is usually detained, more often than not, by the Navy. And in the process of the detention, the investigation could take forever. And there have been instances where issues were joined with vessels for over 6 to 9 months before a proper adjudication of the process of the act went to court. So you find that seafarers are exposed, apart from being unable to move or go back on shore or go on their shore leave or be repatriated, they are, in a good number of cases, charged for the offense. Now, you don't charge a man who technically has no knowledge. Criminal issues are meant to be determined by way of accusation and proof. And of course, the issue of mens rea and the fact that somebody has been found to be responsible for the act needs to be proved. So the criminalization of seafarers is unfortunate because a good number of them cooked and other hands on board the vessel, more often than not, do not know anything about the act. At best, you may say that the master is an agent of the owner, and as such, whatever is deemed to be the act of the owner is deemed to have been handled by the master. And it suffices that the master or one or two senior officers are held responsible, just like in corporate law. A company may be guilty. You don't go charging all the members of staff because even the passengers and so are not, except there's proof that they were personally involved in the act and knew what they were doing. So the menstrual issue is critical to criminalization of seafarers, who most of the time are innocent and as such should not be victimized. They should not be put into.
Chidi, if we have it this way, sympathy is not enough. How do we get them off the hook? Evidently, they are too low in the hierarchy of control on board the ships to ever think that they might be part and parcel of the criminal acts. How do we separate the chaff from the grain so that these people will not continue to suffer?
Half of the time.
And then while you are trying to answer that, let me, by way of general announcement, I'm aware that there has been a lot of chats that we have received. I want to let you know that in another 30 minutes, the panelists will be able to answer some of the questions that have been asked. So I want our participants to know that we are aware that they have been sending some of their chats to us, and we'll be able to treat them later on. So back over to you, Chidi.
Yes, thank you. It's a question of understanding of how a vessel operates. Most times, this collective grouping or arresting of everybody is done by those trying to enforce the law. Even in enforcing the law, there has to be guidelines. Just like you rightly observed, sir, a vessel is under the control of a master. People down the line who have no control over the vessel act as they are directed or ordered. And so even in obeying the directives, they should not be implicated. What tends to happen now is that because everybody is found on board, the idea is to say, okay, there's strict liability because most of the offenses, even under the Miscellaneous Offences Act, which is what most of the cases are tried on right now, are taken to be people who, by implication, are said to be quote and unquote guilty even before they are taken to court. So there needs to be a distinction between who is the authority and who should be held responsible. I believe.
Sorry to interrupt you. You and I have worked on this matter when we were defending cargo interests. You remember, though, in our younger days, yes, when it was our duty to defend the cargo interests, who, because of for some reasons, are not as vociferous as they should be. How about asking that with the collaboration at a later date between the Maritime Law Association, the security agencies involved, and MTS, how about having a joint session together where we'll be able to say that it's not everybody on board the ship that should be criminalized because of a ship or whatever happens on a ship. And I have in mind in particular now where a ship is detained due to commercial disagreement between the charterer or the cargo interest and the ship owner. Maybe you want to also react to that, right, finally.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. That's another aspect where you have maritime disputes. Maritime disputes often arise where either there's been a breach of the charter party or where there's a problem with delivery of cargo, and consequently the cargo interest decides to come after the ship. When that happens, the vessel is deemed to have been, more often than not, arrested under an action in rem, being a right to arrest the vessel for a breach of a contractual term. Where that happens, the usual thing is for the ship owner to post security for the release of the vessel by way of bank guarantee or P&I club bond or indemnity, which then entitles the vessel to leave. Until that happens, the vessel remains under arrest. Unfortunately, where the vessel remains under arrest, ship owners more often than not keep postponing the realities or don't come to terms with the issues promptly. And so seafarers who probably should go on shore leave or who should be repatriated remain longer than envisaged. Again, that constitutes some form of agony for the seafarer, because ideally, where it is not possible to post security immediately or as soon as practicable, the seafarer should be at least a majority of them should be relieved of the assignment and sent home. Only key officers or personnel required to maintain the vessel, for instance, keeping the engine running and all that, need to be retained in the location. So for seafarers, they are exposed to the vagrancies of maritime disputes, which could result in an arrest and having the vessel kept within jurisdiction. And of course, there are also issues about port state regimes which need to be complied with. Where the vessel is in breach of a port state regulation, for instance, the MASA or MPA or even the Navy could detain the vessel. So all these are issues that expose the seafarer to maybe prolonged stay in a port, lack of opportunity to travel home, and sometimes a good number of them fall ill or get affected psychologically. So these are the issues that we need to be looking at. And I
okay, as I said, at a later date, we are going to engage the Nigeria Maritime Law Association on this matter a little more on this particular issue. I like to now. I want to. Okay, thank you very much. I want to now. I'm not unaware that others are keeping people. Engineer Okwade, I'm not unaware that you are standing by. Margaret, I'm not unaware that you are standing by. Will soon come over to you. Please pardon us for now. And I'm not unaware also that Professor Kuka is yet to speak. We'll come to all that in a moment. Thank you very much for your patience. I thank you. Now, Engineer Okwade, the issue, sorry, Ogunto Kun, I beg your pardon. The issue of fatigue, safety and hazards of the working environment is very central to the psychological frame of mind, the health, spiritual and physical of the seafarers. What is your take on this particular matter, and how do we ameliorate the environment in such a way that the seafarer will be a healthier person, body, mind, and soul? You have the floor, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. I begin with to say the theme for the Seafarers Day for year 2020 is Seafarers are key workers. It cannot be overemphasized the importance of the seafarers. A lot of time, seafarers have been maltreated one way or the other. But then looking back at our days, I thought we really enjoyed a better recognition than what it is now today. Fatigue, as you have rightly said, I think it's been emphasized as a part of COVID-19. Fatigue, stress, and hazard at work.
I thought the issue of fatigue has always been there, even before
it's always
COVID
been
came.
there.
COVID came
Yes.
only just the beginning of this year or towards the end of last year. Fatigue has been known to be the problem of the seafarer from time immemorial.
Yes,
even when the seas were so slow, and even now that the seas have improved, it's still been the same thing.
Yes,
So,
it has always been there.
Unless you are telling me that the has brought a new sense of fatigue, which particularly
to
with psychological.
That's what I'm saying.
If you have not
it's now being oversized.
Okay.
Yeah, it has now been emphasized.
I wonder whether you like to. turn on your video so I can see you face to face. I like to see your handsome face.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay, but it doesn't matter. Please go ahead. I can hear you.
Yeah. So
now I can hear. Now I see you and I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
The safety and the hazard environment. All of us need to contribute one way or the other. The seafarers don't operate in isolation. So the shipping industry has a lot to contribute. Fortunately for me, I have been an oil and machinery surveyor. I have been P&I surveyor, and I go on board and I found out that seafarers have not been well kitted. They are not well kitted. There are no provision for PPE on some vessels. And
you mean in terms of provision for their needs, food, medicaments, and
yes.
in their various could that be because the ship owner is suffering them?
Oh yes, because if there is no provision for it, the ship owner, yes, if they don't make a provision for it, then they just put on whatever they want. The ship owners need to provide a standard environment, enshrine best practices, embrace corporate responsibility, safety at work. The ship owners need to really look into it very well. Again, with respect to ship owners in Nigeria, I have a point.
Okay, let me stop you here and draw in Engineer Greg Ogbefu. I'm aware there is a ship owner. I'm aware I have been present on occasions when he was celebrating his seafarers on board some of his vessels, and he was spoiling them rotten with so much. And by this one trying to advertise for stars. But would Greg like to say something concerning this? This is an accusation to ship owners. What do you say to that? Greg, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you very much, the mission to seafarers, particularly the attempt by the new management team to reposition the mission. Mr. Chairman, sir, I would like to say that the more I've listened to the deliberations thus far, the more confused I have become as to the essence of this webinar. From the correspondence that was sent to me, my understanding is that the mission to Seafarers Nigeria chapter, whose theme is caring for seafarers around the world. is trying to reposition infrastructurally and trying to reposition as well psychologically and software-wise. Now, I want to say this very quickly, that the mission was set up about 60 years ago. 60 years ago, the psyche, the challenges of the seafarer worldwide was different from what it is now. 60 years ago, okay, let's say in the 70s when some of us were at sea, we're used to going from a port to another in 2 months, and in that 2 months, there's no means of communicating with home. Then you look forward to receiving letters at the next port of call. Now, what was the purpose of the mission at that time? You looked forward to going into a foreign port and then getting away from the ship and then going to the mission after all the normal meals on board, and then having some engagements with the reverends, with the chaplain, and the mission helped you to get around the foreign country. Now, that was then. Today, information, communications, and technology has improved things slightly differently. I know that there are ships where the crew are having devotion. I know that there are ships where the crew are keying in by satellite communications to their churches, to different programs, even whilst on board. So they're able to close the gap. Now, I know there are ships where most of the seafarers are able to now, once in a while, communicate with their families. Now, I don't want to focus on coronavirus. There are different platforms of government and agencies that are addressing this. But I want to come back to the responsibility of the mission to seafarers in Nigeria. Now, we are talking about foreign seafarers coming to Nigerian ports. For example, the ports in Lagos. What is their psyche? Number one, they are scared to get off the ship and come ashore because of insecurity. They are worried about the things they hear. They sit in the anchor for months waiting to come ashore, come alongside. They are seeing skyscrapers. They are seeing seemingly Western style environment in Lagos. But at the same time, they are hearing that you can't go ashore when you get to port because number one, there's gridlock. You might not be able to come back to your ship in time. There are Nigerian localized issues, which I believe the mission should look at. We want to, the seafarer, foreign seafarer coming into Nigeria is anxious to see what the artifacts are. What are the historical places? Now the mission can, I'm glad that there are efforts now to support the mission to create an opportunity for these foreign seafarers coming into Nigerian waters to be able to confidently step off the ship. In those days, the mission will send a mission bus, comfortable bus, to come to the ship and pick up all those who wanted to go ashore. So they will go first to the mission, they interact at the mission, and some people want to go to duty-free shops. In the case of Nigeria, we have a lot of places of interest in Lagos that foreign seafarers want to go to, but they don't have the confidence. And I think it's a mission to seafarers that should play the role of giving confidence, giving assurances, providing escorts, making sure they go and come back. And I can go on and on, I don't have the time. So I think-
you will be right to say you don't have the time, Greg. But I want you to know that the main purpose of this webinar is to listen to how all of you together as stakeholders and players in the industry can assist the mission to seafarers. I'd like you to understand one thing for sure. I'm not afraid to say this. The international headquarters has been here. The regional, I'm pretty sure Cedric is listening to me. The regional director in South Africa has been here. They've all been trying to see how much deterioration we have in this particular place where we are sitting. The deterioration is such that you can cut a knife through it. Beyond the issue of what is happening in the city of Lagos is the tremendous amount of decay that we have in here. But as a committee, we are already resolved that we are going to reverse the situation. You and I have served on committees where we had to reposition even situations that are totally hopeless. And you know how much we had to do. I don't need to mention the details of that. But I just let it be known that we already have the buy-in of the international headquarters to assist us to get back to where we should be. We have the buy-in of the regional headquarters in South Africa to assist us to buy in. As I'm speaking with you now, there is already a promise from International Transport Federation by way of funding. But we haven't got such things from Nigerian players, which is one of the reasons that we are talking to Nigerian players. Let us come and assist. Of course, we do know one thing for sure. By the nature of our duty, by the nature of the clout that we are beginning to get back, by the nature of the support and the assistance we are getting from high ups, particularly from the Bishop of Lagos, who's been tremendously interested, even though he's not a ship owner, and by our own personal efforts as well too. Some of the things that you are saying can be done, but then we don't have the fund, but we don't want to look like beggars.
Am I allowed to say one or two?
That's why we are trying to get everybody sensitized to let them know of this. You have the floor, Greg.
Thank you very much. So now you have come back to the point.
Greg, you please have
I'd like to see the situation, sir.
You may please continue.
Ship owners in Nigeria can get together and say that this is going to be their contribution in the new mission that is evolving. I would like to see a situation where NIMASA can look at what's happening there and say, okay, this is going to be our contribution. We want to take on this project to turn this around. I'd like to see a situation where some organizations will donate a bus, mission to seafarers, a bus that can go to from ship to ship when they come in, and those who want to come ashore. I'd like to see a security company.
I'm pretty sure I can expect a good 24-seater from Stars Group. Am I being unfair to my friend?
Thank you very much. Well, let's come back to the mission.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now let's come back to the issue which we are going to discuss. And I understand how emotional you can be about matters like this. I still remember that when you and I had cause to work on repositioning an academy in Nigeria that trains seafarers, you did weep, just like Jesus wept when he saw some decay that was happening those thousands of years ago. You did weep, but this time around, you're no longer weeping. You are just showing us the way how to go about this. Please, can you also say about the issue of what they faced when they come ashore is what we are saying. What about when they are offshore, their offshore environment, which is your main domain, in which your seafarers, the seafarers under your employment work? Would you like to share that with us? Greg, have I lost you or still have you with me?
I'm with you, sir. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't stress you. I know I shouldn't stress you at this moment. But you and I, whenever we get together, this is. Please go ahead.
Now, I will comment on your question, but I also like to emphasize that the seafarers we are talking about offshore don't have anything to do with the mission to the seafarers and the objective of the mission. I'd like to clarify that. Now, coming to the seafarers operating offshore in our industry, you find that they want to get off the ship and they want to go home. They want to come from home and join the ship. So there is no space for the issue of the mission. I need to clarify that. Now, with respect to the welfare and care of our own seafarers offshore, there are challenges there. They're operating long hours. They're operating in very inclement weather. But don't forget also that our clients, the charterers, they have their own set procedures and standards that we must comply with. For instance, the charterers have come out with their own code protocols, health protocols, to deal with the issue of COVID, to ensure that those coming on board are not bringing on board some infections that they may have had, and then those who have been on board going home are not taking any infections back to their families. So in our own case, for example, we quarantine all the incoming crew for 14 days. At the end, working with our charterers, at the end of which they are tested and ensured to be okay before they go on board. Similarly, those who are off signing are quarantined in specific facilities for 14 days and certified okay to go home. Now, whilst they are away, I can speak for my company, I don't know about others. The families of our crew are made to understand that whilst their breadwinners are away at sea, the company is their point of call for any issue, any challenge, any problem, any difficulty. So we have a welfare unit that is dedicated to ensuring that they are constantly in touch with the families of the crew ashore. Now, with this understanding, we found out that the crew who are offshore are committed, they are relaxed, knowing that somebody is taking care of issues. So I'd like to stop here at the moment. Like you said, I need to begin to catch my breath.
Thank you very much, Greg. I do appreciate that. Of course, I can testify to that it is an all-round care that STARS is known for. The issue is, beyond the issue of STARS, what about other ship owners? Do they take care of their crew? Now, you mentioned something about the donation of seafarers by the amount of their travel out to sea. We, for this purpose, are thinking seafarers also include those who are working on vessels, as well as on trawlers. They are all seafarers, considering the way that we have taken a look at them in this particular environment. So please, Greg, of that. But I'd like Margaret to please come in on this particular issue. We don't think we should still drop it. And as I said, even the seafarers on board the fishing vessels, as well as seafarers on board service vessels, are still considered as seafarers, at least within our climb here. But if you are now telling us that unless they go on deep sea operation and services, we shouldn't consider them as seafarers, then we want to let you know that we will like to consider them as our own also seafarers. Beyond the issue of those foreign seafarers that come around us here, we also want to be able to take care of those who are also managing the economy in their various ways, either by way of trawling, by way of working on board service vessels. So, Margaret, if you are still with us, and I appreciate your patience up till now, you may please want to take the floor. Thank you very much.
Well, I thank you for this privilege. I'll start by saluting our unsung heroes, the seafarers all over the world. We all know that a lot of trading activities is made possible by their contribution, exports and imports. Now, bringing it back home to the activities of the trawlers, trawlers don't just trawl within Nigeria. They also, depends on where you have your fishing license. Their activities throughout this COVID-19 has maintained a steady flow of domestic supply of seafood, and also maintained a channel for export. When it comes to their welfare, we try to do as much as we can. It is a give and take situation. What you give is what you reap in return. To start with, when you've gone to buy a vessel running into millions of dollars, you look for the best hand. And we believe that when they are out there in the sea, as owners, we are not there with them. Their problems are definitely our own. What we do, we export our products mainly to European Union, and it's highly regulated. For their medical, for their everything, we take care of. Now, coming home to my own company, we have lost a lot of seamen out there in the sea due to sea piracy attacks and everything. And you automatically step in. It's like you have inherited a wife and children, and that's the way it is. And what really bothers us is the lack of safety in our waters. If anything is happening now, who goes to rescue, search and rescue? And that is where we are calling upon the regulators whose function it is to maintain safety in our waters, to remove the wrecks that cause the accident, to provide sea ambulances, very fast crafts that can go and do that. Now, we also talk about sea piracy. During this COVID-19, some people have been out there in the sea beyond the usual time. And I'm happy that we have talked about the psychological effect. When you have people that you send to sea to be there for between 45 and 50 days, and they are staying beyond that period, then the fear of sea piracy is there, sea robberies, activities of hostile communities, all on these individuals. So as ship owners, we do our part. We make sure at least that their supplies are available to them. It is also the responsibility of the government to provide safe environments for businesses to thrive. And what do I mean by safe environment? In terms of security, in terms of safety, these are things that are out of our hands as owners, but they affect the activities of our seamen. Somebody said something about criminalizing whatever that happens in the vessel. If I may come in and share my little experience with the audience, you know, at times things happen out there. Pirates board the vessels, they may leave and leave in casualties. We've had instances where people are thrown into the cold rooms, frozen to death. Of course, when the vessel comes back to base, you have to make reports. You know, how the authorities go about the investigation is out of your hands. You know, so when you have the conference you have alluded to, as ship owners would also want to be there because it takes us time. At times we go to the police station, spend the money, take the undertaking and everything, do the undertaking to get our crew out. There is a limit you can also pursue that. So I salute the seafarers. The whole world is now knowing how important their activities are. And I thank you very much for inviting us to share and contribute to the conference going on. Thank you very much. No, sir.
Can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Chairman, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Now, we will definitely do just that. I want to assure you that we're going to do just that. I will ask that Cedric, please come in now. Let us talk about the issue of how to take care of the seafarers from the point of view of their spirituality. And after your intervention, I'd like Professor Coker to please stand by so that we can take the two together. Please, you have the floor now, Cedric.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps before
I apologize for keeping you waiting for so long, but it's nice, it's deliberate, because I want you to know some of the peculiar situations that you and Ben need to know, the peculiar situations that new MTS is going to face in Nigeria, and a number of them you've already had. So you may want to take the floor. Thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure. I just want to perhaps before I answer your question, just tie in something with some comments that have been made before. What I've obviously heard is perhaps the plight of the local seafarer. And in my visits to Nigeria, there's always been that item that has come up on agendas. And I suppose I probably just need to say that traditionally, Mission to Seafarers is always, while obviously local seafarers are seafarers, they've always focused on, in fact, international seafarers visiting ports. And the reason for that is that there is normally some sort of local structure that supports local seafarers. So we heard from the previous speaker about fishermen. If we look in Southern Africa, local fishermen are part of a network in their own ports. And so as Mission to Seafarers, we've always said that if we have to take that on as well, our resources will be stretched too far. So that's just something that I would suggest that the new committee considers as they move forward, is what is their focus going to be. And as I said, Mission to Seafarers traditionally has looked after foreign seafarers, because in fact, when they come to ports, as somebody said, they don't know anybody. They don't have a social structure. They don't have support. And often it is the Mission to Seafarers or welfare organizations like ourselves that in fact reach out to them and provide them with that support. The second thing is that we went through a process of regionalization 6 years ago. And part of that was to in fact move the focus of Mission to Seafarers from London IHQ, in fact, to the local community. And that's why I've loved that conversation that you've had now. That in fact, we want to empower the local community. I'm very excited about the new committee and your drive and your passion to actually get ministry happening in Lagos. And what you've achieved locally as you've drawn your own resources in, that is very, very exciting, because that is the model that we're looking for when we talk about regionalization, that we empower local committees and local people, that the local church, the local maritime industry, that they take ownership of this work and say, we actually will create structure and framework in which seafarers can be cared for. Now, as an organization, we say that we care for all seafarers and their families, regardless of their religious background. But part of what we want to try and do, and the emphasis that we have as Mission to Seafarers is in that that contact that we can make with a seafarer, and the conversation, the space in which we can create a conversation to happen, because that's in fact when we can listen and we can minister. And so ship visiting is the number one priority that we have with regards to Mission to Seafarers. And so I'd just like to get this out now. There are many people that are listening from many different organizations. Just to say that we have struggled to get a pass for our chaplain and in fact for other ship visitors to actually go into the port. And that is critical for the work that we do, because that's how we believe you can have a pastoral conversation, no matter what the religious background of the person is. When you can sit alongside him and connect with him and have a conversation and listen to him, that's how we can care for them. And that's the thing that we want to emphasize. So just to say, if you can help us with that, those people that are listening, we need to be able to get our chaplains and our ship visitors into the port and onto ships. And so, yeah, in closing, I would say that is the foundation. I'm going to repeat what I'm saying. The foundation of what we as Mission to Seafarers, the thing that we pride ourselves on when it comes to spiritual care and welfare care, is being able to create framework in which a conversation can happen. And that's why we're excited about the center, because often when chaplains go on board, the time is limited. But in fact, if we can get a seafarer to a safe place, there was somebody that was talking about that as well. And there is that perception. I have spoken to seafarers that have come from Lagos. There is a perception that in fact, I've spoken to captains that won't let their seafarers off ships. But shore leave is critical. But it's also part of that pastoral care, that if we can get seafarers off into what they perceive as a safe place, then in fact, that pastoral care, those conversations can happen. As they sit in an environment, as they have an opportunity to contact their families and just to talk to people, to get off the ship, to feel grass on their feet. That for us is what our work is about. So thank you for this opportunity. Just amazing what you've achieved so far. It's a prayer that's answered to me. When I first visited, as you said, Mr. Chairman, what was there and what there is there now and what we can look forward to in the future, I thank God for that work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cedric. Thank you very much indeed. We want to assure you that that's the reason our management committee is here. And part of this idea of asking stakeholders to speak on various issues is to let them know what is actually necessary. And some of these you have already emphasized. And thank you very much for calling their attention, because we as a committee cannot do anything without the industry support. And I know that industry support comes not only from the regulatory authorities, they also come from the state commercial stakeholders within the system. It's nice to take care of the families of your employees, like Margaret said, and like Greg also said. But we also want it to be known that we on our own side also are going to work also in your best interest by taking care if we have the appropriate infrastructure and the resources at the center to be able to do that. That is why we are here. I thank you very much, Cedric, once again. Professor Coker, please forgive me that it's taking this long time to ask you to come in. Definitely, you want to be able to address us. You by now are fairly familiar with the conditions of the seafarers from the point of view of what panelists have been able to say. Please, you may want to take the floor now, sir, if you are still with us, and I believe you do. You are with us. Thank you very much.
I'm with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
fellow participants, all the participants, and I want to thank you for having me. It is very essential that you must talk about the mental health of seafarers. All the speakers from Ben Bailey to the last speaker, Reverend Cedric, have talked about welfare of seafarers. And when they are talking about welfare, it is also in tandem with their mental health. A recent scientific study that was carried out recently showed that there's a very strong association, a correlation between depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and suicide among seafarers. Depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, suicide among seafarers. The study also showed that 25% of seafarers suffer from depression, 17% suffer from anxiety, 20% had contemplated committing suicide, and 15% have actually committed suicide. I heard early on that there were about more than 1 million seafarers in this world. So can you imagine 15% of them committing suicide in a year? Now, I'm supposed to talk about claustrophobia and depression, but what I've heard goes beyond claustrophobia and depression. Even before the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, mental health disorders have been on increase all over the world. So the pandemic has actually made it to go astronomically. And what are the causes of mental health disorders among seafarers? Fear of dying at sea. We've had that on earlier on. 2,000 farers lose their lives annually due to natural causes, due to accidents, and due to suicide. Other causes are loneliness, fear of falling ill in a foreign land and hospitalization, threats of piracy, abduction, fear of abandonment, okay, repatriation, refusal to allow them to go on annual leave, refusal to pay them their wages, untrained personnel, hostile community, no social support, and insecurity. Now, you have all parents experiencing these mental issues. What are the manifestations of these problems? They manifest again as physical disorders. Shortness of breath, tightness of the chest, intense sweating and tremors, feeling as if one is going to go crazy. And this can last for 5, sometimes to 30 minutes, or sometimes for days. And today, the manifestation of depression, again, mostly manifests as physical disorders. Weight loss, low appetite, poor sleep, chest pain, back pain, crawling sensation, and hotness of the body. Now, when that has not been attended to, it could now go to the mental health disorders. We have fatigue, I heard about fatigue earlier on, low mood, sadness, loss of interest in what gives pleasure. In severe conditions, you now have auditory hallucinations, hearing strange voices, or seeing strange things, like the man-made seafarers see. They can get to hopelessness, worthlessness, and feelings of guilt. This is when they think of committing suicide. And if they don't have psychological intervention, then they could actually commit suicide. We have grief and bereavement. If a colleague has lost a colleague on sea, he will suffer from grief and bereavement. He will suffer from post-traumatic stress disorders. They also suffer from emotional exhaustion and burnout. And these are the things seafarers and management of seafarers do not recognize. Now, I want to conclude by saying that it is very important that the medical officer on board is trained in what's called the cognitive behavior therapy, a specialized form of counseling. He should also be trained on how to quickly recognize the signs and symptoms of mental health disorders. So while on sea, he cannot provide psychological intervention. He can also give some mild antidepressants, some mild dose of anti-anxiety. So it is also very important that the policymakers, public health policymakers, and ship owners to also continue to talk, as we are speaking today, on the issues of mental health. And that's when we can reduce the stigma and discrimination associated with mental health disorders. it is also very, very important that maritime authority should provide psychological intervention to assess and screen seafarers before they go on board, and if possible, to have also a collaboration with the host community where they are going to screen some people, whether they have actually suffered from mental disorders. In that, we'll be able to reduce the rate of mental health disorders among seafarers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Just before you go, your recommendation is for the ship owner. Because as employers of these seafarers, they have to also ensure not only their physical health, but also their mental health. I want the ship owners within our panelists, so please take note of this. But specifically, you also mentioned something about the authorities, the maritime authorities, being concerned with this. My suggestion here is for Jibril, please take note of this and let us see whether also we can have a situation where we can have something where we are going to call back the prof at a later date and get the ship owners and together sit down to say, what do we do with the mental health of the seafarers? We are not talking of seafarers coming from the foreign. We are talking of our own seafarers working within our environment or even going to work abroad. There is need for us to talk on that topic. I want to thank you most sincerely, all panelists. You've been most wonderful. You've been most patient with us. Your contributions have largely expanded our horizon and shown us how much job that we have to do. I'm not unaware also that out there various participants that have been sending their charts, and I would like to take a look at a few of these charts now, and we'll read them out in the hope that the panelists can themselves quickly, within the short period that we have left. We have 10 minutes left for this purpose. The first question says, Captain, that's from our Captain Anya. Deployment of untrained seafarers appear to be common, currently resulting in poor service delivery or accidents and sometimes fatalities. Are ship owners conducting verification of certificates and service history before deploying seafarers, especially of the lower ranks on board their vessels? Mr. Aminu Umar and Engineer Greg Ugbefu, please, can you take 1 minute to address this question? Over to you, sir.
Engineer Greg, am I allowed to start?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, my boss.
Yes, Umar first, Umar first, and then Greg after.
Okay, I think speaking as ship owner, we conduct verification. There is no crew that will go on board any of our ships without us verifying the certificate. So we have a system that we put in place. It's not only for us, but even the insurance that cover our vessel make it mandatory for us to make sure that the certificates are verified, are in line, so that in the event there is an incident, these certificates will be verified by our insurance to be sure that we are following our ISM and that we have put in place and that we have to follow. So really, I think, yes, we have come across so many Nigerian or seafarers who carry very unauthentic certification, but we have a system that brings it out. But I just like what they said, there are many that are having on board their ship who don't verify, and it's really affecting the ship. Thank you very much.
Greg, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Umar. Thank you very much indeed. Greg, you have the floor now.
I align 100% with my brother, Aminu Omar. The process of engagement of seafarers in our system goes through very stringent due diligence, which involves the charterers. They have their standards, the regulatory agencies, NIMASA, who are the certifying authority. We engage with them. I must say that it's very, very difficult for an unqualified or uncertified or fake certificate seafarer to get into our system. So we don't have that experience in our system. You just can't get in.
Thank you very much. One more question. And this is from, I'm trying to get the name. I get it's Chris Narianya. I'm not so sure whether I got the name right, but it says, indeed, the conference is right. The MTS is an integral part of the welfare of the seafarers in a foreign land. Security considerations, funding, and personnel training is crucial to their success. I do hope that we can, using this one, we can continue to hope that stakeholders, when we come knocking on their doors, are going to be of tremendous assistance to us in this regard. Another question. It says, of us of that problem. I'm going to ask Karen to please her own idea how it is done. Karen, if you are this one up.
Interestingly, every time it gets to my turn, the network decides to take off. So you would pardon me and have to repeat your question again.
Okay. The question came from one of the participants. It says, some of us were signed off without being paid under flimsy excuses from the owners. How can the organization help Nigerian seafarers to address this problem? I want you to say something about that. And if Ben is still with us, I'd like Ben to also address this particular issue. I hope you get me now, Karen.
Yes, I heard you 100%. Now, by every standard, that's wrong. I mean, even when if you look at the laws, the MLC clearly says that you pay a seafarer for the days he's worked. I don't subscribe to ship owners owing seafarers for job that is already done. Okay, so this doesn't happen. Well, again, I think a lot of times we think that this is only peculiar to Nigeria, but this actually happens all over the world, but it's not something that we agree to. And this also puts very good ship owners in bad light. So I think that if a ship owner is refusing to pay salaries for whatever reasons they have, the seafarer has a right to raise an MLC complaint to the flag state. And in this case, if it's Nigeria, then they have to raise a complaint to NIMASA, and NIMASA has to look into it. But no seafarer should be signed off without being paid their wages.
Okay, thank you very much. The issue is that they have to bring this one to our attention. If they don't bring this one to attention, of course, we will not know. I do hope that the was asked that question, as well as Shakin William is also asking the same question. The question is almost question: what there is usually no hope, even get kind of back. And all this within our committee, within our group, are people who have been in your shoes before in their younger days, and they have gone through all the crucible of what you've been through. Please find ways of reaching us. You can get us either through our pardon me, I'm trying to use the right word now. Our website, which I believe you can easily find. And if you are able to get some of this to us, we will take the matter up not only with your employers, but also with the appropriate flag state authorities, wherever such things come up. I see that a number of other questions are also towards this side, and I want to assure you that they are here for you. The most important thing is, let us know what you seafarers suffer. Let us know what is paining you, and we will be able to get through with our connections to the civil authorities, with our connections to the stakeholders. We will be in a position to assist you. Our work does not consist on only visiting ships when they are in our shores, but even for the local seafarers, issues that you have raised, which is most of the questions that we have here, they are also part and parcel of what we want to treat. Please take note of this. On this note, the distinguished panelists, we want you most sincerely for your patience. It's been 2 good hours since you have been sitting in there. I believe we have taken the whole of your day, and I'm sure that it is because of your interest in the seafarer, either as a shipowner, as captains on board ships, as engineers on board ships, as charterers, as mining agents, as cargo interests. All of you have been most wonderful, and your various contributions are highly appreciated. On behalf of my colleagues at the Mission to Seafarer Lagos, we want to say thank you very much indeed. We want to thank especially Ben Bailey of the international headquarters of the Seafarers. We want to thank Cedric Durbanchuk, also of the regional headquarters in South Africa, as well as the rest of us. The Maritime Workers Union President General, represented by Mr. Oniha, the Director General of MASA, represented by Jibril, Margaret, we are always ever there for us. Umar, thank you very much indeed. Savinayu, I'm indeed Karim, you'll be most wonderful. Tajudeen Alao, we had some issues with your vocal, with your voice. But that notwithstanding, we were able to get part of some side mind. Greg, I know I'm wonderful. I want to say that, Chidi, that I'm not going to let you go. Like I have promised you, you and I, you and MTS have a lot of work to do together to ensure, particularly that other issues concerning admiralty, ship detention, and effect on seafarers are taken care of. I thank you very much, everybody, and I wish you the very best. And whatever it is that you do, may the good Lord keep you away from COVID. Thank you, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can you hear me?
Stay safe, everyone.
And the participants also, we are indeed very grateful for your patience. We are indeed very grateful for all the questions that you've been able to send in. We want to assure you that it is because you are interested in the seafarers' welfare that you decided to take part in this large number. We are with you on ensuring that the seafarer So our ports, as well as the local seafarers that are working either within our waters or outside, they are taking good care of. God bless you. Over and out. Thank you very much. I want to finally mention that at 4 o'clock, we have further talks on Lagoon Radio, where we are going to discuss issues concerning seafarers as well. Thank you very much, and God bless you.